Next step is to remove the stock connector from the stock switch. What you have to do is, and every connector is a little bit different, there's generally a little tiny tab that you can reach inside of the switch, and you would either use a very small screwdriver or, in this case, a small pick, and push the tab out of the way, and you can pull the wire out of the switch. Of course, you've made your handy dandy drawing before you start pulling the wires out of the switch in case things go wrong. But they're not, right? And so you just continue on, happily pulling wires out of the switch until you have if they don't come out easily, take a look again, make sure that you're working on the right part. If you can see how I'm doing this, it takes very little effort to get these out of the housing. If it's hard to get them out, you're doing it wrong. Don't want to break this because they're very hard to find. Last thing we need to do with the standard switch is identify what kind of terminal is used for the stock wiring harness and the stock connector. This is very, very important because if you use a connector that is the wrong type, it may not lock properly into the connector, and it will cause, it may come back out of the connector and cause the electrical system on your bike to fail. Bad thing. These connectors are very specialized connectors. You can't just buy them down the street at the Ace Hardware store. What you have to do is there are several specific suppliers of these type of connectors, and you can get them through your local motorcycle shop, and there are several online sources to look for these kinds of terminals. Here's a good close-up of the terminals. You can see we have to match the terminal with the stock connector. Notice this one has a completely different shape. This one looks like that's our man right there. Yes. So, once having sourced these terminals and decided which one is the correct match for your switch, now we can put this switch away and we're ready to work on the new one. This is the new switch that we will be installing on the motorcycle. So now we have to remove this connector to add this connector in there. You notice they look pretty similar, pretty close, but these will not interchange with the stock harness. They're different shapes. You cannot use the standard connector on this switch. So again, we're going to take all of the wires out. The reason that you can't use this connector is because of the really wide variety of connectors used on various motorcycles. There may very well, and it might be your motorcycle that uses this connector, but then again, the position of the wires inside the connector may be different from your motorcycle. So this is why it pays off to take your time, write down all of your wires, and make sure that you are putting this together in the correct fashion. We got lucky this time in that the terminals on this harness, on the aftermarket harness, are exactly the same as the ones that Suzuki used on this particular model of motorcycle. This is not very common, but we got lucky this time. On our drawing, the start and stop switch share one wire. So we actually are only going to need 3 wires connected into the Suzuki connector. So the two of the wires from both the start-stop switch and the starter switch will be connected together and plugged into a single place on the harness, onto the connector. So we'll actually have to cut these off and combine it into one terminal for these switches. There's a card that comes with the aftermarket switch also that has the wiring diagram of the standard switch. The most important part is which colors of wire handle the run side and which one handle the starter side. So this one, blue, white, and black is the starter, and red, black, and red, white are the run switch. Because of this, and because they are just a standard open and closed switch, we're going to join the black wire and the red and white wire together as our common.